Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Drone Out.
Let's drone out.
What he said. We are tonight. We are joined by Drone Out.
Let's drone out.
Oh,
well
very
done,
good,
Jack.
That's
I think the echo is still here.
professional.
Oh God, I forgot. Sorry, I was in the middle of doing.
Oh my God, I've just done it now.
New professional drone show.
Oh dear.
Oh, bollocks.
Whoever said it was professional? No one, none of us.
I know. Yeah, I'm gonna do it again. Damn it! It's because I have to do the website and everything. Frank's given up. Frank's gone. Right, hello and welcome to Let's Drone Out. Tonight we're joined by Andrew / Frank.
Hello.
Who's next? Andy RC.
Good evening, everyone.
Our good friend Final Glide Oz or Chad Nowak.
Hello.
We're joined by my little Tony.
Ooh, best friends now, curry kitten.
Not in the mood today, by the way, guys. I've got it in Facebook. He's not in the mood. Do not take the piss out of Tony. Thank God I managed to single entendre the title for tonight's show, so Tony doesn't understand it. So it was able to fly under the Tony radar. And
I think it's just your dyslexia and spelling.
why was it spelt incorrectly?
I think it may be.
Frank, is it spelt wrong?
Don't know. I haven't looked at it.
I asked you. I asked you for spellings.
Looks
And-
okay for me.
And my number one favourite person, my Tony replacement, Curry King.
Hello. No hard feelings, Tony. I'm number one.
Ooh,
A Tony replacement would be no good though, because you'd have to hate him, really,
Yes,
wouldn't
right.
you?
I don't actually hate Tony.
Oh, best friend.
Shut up, Tony.
Okay.
He's not in the mood. So how's Joker treating you, Tone?
Better than you ever did.
Oh, why is he fixing all your stuff and everything?
Yep, don't need you anymore. You're at the back of the queue.
So
It's
Andrew
already
said-
got weird. It's already got weird. Just saying.
It's starting to sound extremely British.
Cup of tea.
Oh my God, Frank, do you want to set us off? Why are you wearing a polo shirt, Frank?
It's not a polo shirt.
It looks like a polo shirt. Why are you wearing a shirt?
Because I go to work sometimes.
This is Let's Drone Out. You can't look that smart.
Do you have to dress posh to go to work?
I don't have to, but it's
Oh, you like
preferable.
to just set an example for the others.
Yeah, exactly.
There is so much body shaming that goes on this show. I just,
Hey, we got an old host in the show, man.
what?
Clint's here.
In the
What,
chat.
watching?
Yeah, man. Hey, Clint, how you doing, man? I try and message you now and again. You just ignore me. Have I
Yeah.
upset you?
Probably best.
And a quick shout out to the chat group to say hi. That's easier than just typing hi a million times to all the people that have individually said hi to me.
Indeed, it is.
Because I'm lazy.
What were we arguing about before the show started? Oh, yeah, me convincing the world that Andy works for Fat Shark.
Yeah, 'cause
Well,
somebody
it's-
has already said in the
it's-
comments.
Now
it's-
got him
it's-
fired. Gah.
Turns out it doesn't work for Fat Shark. It works for Amway. We just had it just a little bit off.
But
Can
Fat Shark is trying to like hustle him because he's such a good worker. They're trying to get him into Fat Shark. I remember last time I spoke to Greg, and he was actually talking about NDRC. I actually gave you a good rap. So if you get a decent wage, it's partly because of me. So just
Final Guide Oz.
Now that Chad's in on it, I have no chance of getting rid of this, have I? Absolutely. Can I just ask, okay, why is it okay to body shame sharks? Let's talk about that. That's going to take a while for that to sink in.
Yeah, it's gone over my head.
Body
Fat
shaming sharks. I don't think it's okay.
Oh,
Right.
God, he's so woke.
I'm lost.
If that was anything other than sharks,
Have we
we'd
ever
be in
asked-
trouble.
anyone from Fat Shark why they're called Fat Shark?
I'm standing up for sharks, the shark community.
Shall I message Grant now?
I've already asked Greg that question.
What's the answer?
Because it was just an unusual name. It was the first thing that he came up with, and it sounded cool.
It does sound cool.
It does.
There's no real specific meaning behind it. He was, if you've met Greg and know him well, then it kind of like suits his personality. It was kind of like, we need a company. What are we going to call it? Fat Shark. That's cool.
It should begin with a P, though, the fat. This is the social justice warrior in me. So it's standing up for sharks.
See, this is why Fat Shark wants to hire you, because you can be like their media marketing manager and so forth, because you know what's hip, you know what the kids want.
There you go.
Should you put a Z at the end as well, Andy? Should it be Fat Sharks?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and some gang signs.
Yeah. What's the Brighton one? It was.
I don't know whether that actually came out.
No, it didn't. See if you can do it again. You need to hum while doing it, Jack. What does that even say?
Blood.
I think Grant does a great job, anyways, of the marketing and stuff over there.
So
I'm not needed. What, Jack?
Final Glide Oz, what's it like now that you've like left the wing of Rotor Riot? Are you having fun? Are you enjoying being persecuted by the Australians? Are you on the run? Is that why you're in America again?
All of the above. My life is always interesting, scary, annoying at various points in time. I guess if I could answer that in a serious manner, it's in a way it's good to come down off the pedestal and get back to reality. So I had about 2 years of just complete crazy traveling, which kind of looked like it was all like the coolest thing on the earth and that sort of stuff. And if you only watch the videos and take everything into account there, that life was grand and all that sort of stuff. And I had some amazing adventures, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But as if anyone's actually lived that kind of lifestyle, I know when I speak to people like that, they go, yeah, you can only live that kind of lifestyle for so long before you go a little stir crazy and you have to get back to reality, especially considering the fact that I wasn't making money. I was literally just scraping by, trying to making ends meet. It was kind of like my midlife crisis, where I'm like, yeah, fuck this, off I go, and I'm just going to throw everything up in the air and just go and find myself. And I guess I found myself doing that, and I learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about life. Things have certainly sort of calmed down for me, and I'm sort of like plowing a new chapter in my life in different directions. So it's one of those things. Everything in life, I'm not going to say happens for a reason, but when whatever happens in your life, good or bad, you always get some good out of it, you get some bad out of it, and you learn from something. So everything that happens allows you to grow as a person. So I could sit there and bitch about the bad times, but there was also good times as well. And all that sort of stuff needs to be taken into account. And so I'm more of a whole person. I understand myself better, and I'm sort of moving on with my life. But that said, I still work with the Rotor Riot guys. Like me and Tommy are still amazing mates, and managed to bury the hatchet with Steel, and we still chat often, that sort of stuff. And Carlos is a real busy guy, so I don't speak to him that often. But when I come over to LA, I try to catch up with him.
I miss him.
So the OG crew of Rotor Riot still get along with those guys, particularly like Carlos and Tommy got utmost amount of respect for those guys. And there's like this, that when I say, oh, I left Rotor Riot, people must think, oh, well, you guys must want to punch each other up and that sort of stuff. It's not that. It's more the case that Rotor Riot went in a direction that I didn't necessarily agree with and didn't feel that I was a part of. So you go in your own different direction. And that doesn't mean that I'm never going to work with them again. So I've been on the Rotor Riot show recently on my last trip. I was here and I reached out to Kappa and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. Do you want to do some filming?" And we found an idea for some filming that we could do that would benefit us both. And so I'm sure in the future I'll be on Rotor Riot again if the opportunity presents itself. So yeah, I think a lot of people put a lot more sort of like hype on the situation than there just is, because anyone who's in the spotlight, everyone goes all nuts and wants to get all excited about something. And unfortunately, the truth is a lot more boring than the fantasy that a lot of people play out.
Yeah, Karen.
It kind of seems like Rotor Riot is less about members now and more about sort of like the content, because like we see Josh in quite a lot of videos, and yourself, where you did the was it the reverb build that you did fairly recently?
Yeah,
I watched that one. That was cool. So and Zoe, I noticed, has been on there as well. So I think perhaps that's a better way of, you know, just throwing it out to the community more rather than saying these are the set members, and then it just allows anyone to sort of, you know, shine in an episode. Perhaps is that the direction they're going?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not involved in their team meetings and so forth. I don't get involved in that at all. So I'm completely separate. So I'm about as part of Rotor Riot as you guys are these days, except that I just know the guys a bit more personally than most other people. So I couldn't tell you exactly what the best way that you could get that answered is to put that on the Rotor Riot social media groups and ask them directly. And at the end of the day, Kappa's got to go in a direction that's going to make his business money. So you found a group of pilots that worked well together, that had a bit of pizzazz and worked well on screen and so forth. And when those pilots sort of segmented, I think he lost that. So he's looking for the next thing that works. And maybe that's community. And you raise a good point that it's more about the community rather than the pilots on there. And Rotor Riot's always been a community-based thing, so it kind of makes sense. But I mean, if he's got a group of pilots which aren't getting as favorable return as what they were previously, then okay, go for the community aspect. I'm not saying that's what they did, but I mean, that's the reality of it. At the end of the day, he's a business, he's got to make money, and he's got to do what he's got to do to get the best following from the community. And yeah, it looks like that's the direction they're going.
You're right. You're right, Andrew. My purpose in life is meaningless now. It's added layers to my depression now. That's it. I am as much good as that shell that Andy RC originally got.
Oh, Jesus, not this again.
I mean,
Put
replacing...
some context on this, because this is completely out of the blue for anyone that wasn't following the chat.
They should follow the chat.
Yeah, but they can't if they're listening to the podcast.
I'm not following the chat, so I don't know what's happening either.
Jack and Joker were arguing about being Tony's best friends.
I call Joker a friend stealer.
What about me? I thought I was Tony's best friend.
Exactly.
On the side, you love it.
That's the funny thing is, you are my best friend, and that they're not.
Who spoke to Tony last on the phone out of the lot of us?
Me.
Andy, actually.
Me.
Oh, I see.
It was Andy.
Right, that's it.
He's gone. Jack's gone.
Okay. One thing I want to ask Chad about is so talking about sort of...
Show us your dog.
No. I was going to ask a serious question. I wanted to ask about the reverb, because anywhere I go, meet up with anyone, just everyone's got the reverb. So that must have been a good success for you. And is that sort of the direction that you're looking at in sort of like developing frames and products and stuff?
So Andy RC now works for Reverb.
It's,
You reinvented the wheel on that.
Andy RC now works for Impulse RC customer support. He's going to take over William's position and get a pay rise.
that would be awesome, actually. That would be cool.
So yeah, I guess to answer your question, the Reverb I guess has been a success. I I guess what you define as a success is down to the individual person, but I would certainly consider it a success. It's been. I was asked a year and a half ago by Chad Kappa, you should design a new frame. What would you do different on the Alien? And my response backward then was nothing. I love everything about it. And as our flying styles and design processes and electronics slowly moved on, that whole mindset of mine changed from there's nothing I'd change to, oh, I tweaked this or I tweaked that. And it started off as a, let's make an Alien 2. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized I'm changing so much stuff that it's kind of like getting a car and taking all the panels off down to the bare chassis, and then changing the chassis. You go, why don't you just start from scratch? Because you don't have as many limitations. It means that it won't be as interchangeable with the Alien, but it never will be with the direction we're going. So I started off with that because I'm like, okay, I really want to do it. I really love the whole DNA of the Alien and so forth, but I want to make improvements for modern day quads that the Alien didn't really bring. And I also wanted to address things of if you don't listen to the customer base about what they really want and what they define as important, then you're going to lose out as a company. And one of them was price, where rightly or wrongly, the customer base of FPV have defined this is what we consider a realistic area for high-end frames. And then you've got the guys who likes the clones, and they'll go, this is what we want down here. And I said to Sean, this is what I'm hoping to achieve. But at the same time, one of the big focuses is I want to get the price down. And this was going like early 2017 when I first started talking to Sean about this. And I said, I want to get the price down. And if it means that we cut our profit margins to enable that, then so be it. Because the whole idea was if we can bring the price down, you'll hopefully sell more. Therefore, your actual profit will kind of be the same. So we spent a lot of time on bringing that price down with the idea that, okay, we can't compete with the clones. So there's no point in trying to compete with the clones. But what you can do is you can get a premium price frame and bring the price down far enough that you might get a small group of those clone lovers to go, well, a little bit more and I can get a premium frame. So that way you keep the premium customers happy while saying that, wow, we're getting a better price, making them even happier. And you get a couple of the guys that would normally buy a clone and put them in there. So that's kind of what we worked out. And looking at the whole design philosophy going through this and what we're hoping to achieve, I think it's a huge success. It's doing a good job of supporting me financially. And I've always been one that I've been very big on pilots being fucking open about how they make money. It's like, you guys should buy this flight controller because it's the best, and you don't even know it, but behind their back, they're getting paid 10 cents for every board, and all of a sudden they go to a different flight controller because they've found a flight controller that they get a bigger profit margin. And I know pilots, like, I don't want to name names, but I know pilots that have asked certain companies, I want to get paid money to support your frame. And these companies have said, sorry, we don't do that. And then 2 weeks later, they've gone to a different frame company because they offered them money, and then publicly go out and talk about, oh, we've gone to this new frame. And the frame that I left was designed badly. So that's why I've gone to this new frame. When you know in the background, it's all because now they're getting money on this side. So I hate that shit. So yes, I'm making money on the Reverb frame, and it's a reasonable amount, but I still haven't, when I calculate my time to develop that frame, I still haven't received the amount of money in hours that I put into designing it, not getting paid. I still haven't even made that back.
Yeah,
It's probably going to take well over a year before I get the money back that I put into that. Now, you could argue, well, I did it in my spare time and so forth. Yeah, but time is money. And that's the way you have to look at this kind of thing when you're doing this as a business. So, yeah, I'm certainly making money in that area, and it is, I would definitely consider it successful. I always thought it was going to be successful because I thought first of all, we've got a good product, something that I'm truly proud of at a price point that the customers will like. But I also knew, okay, it's got my name on it combined with Impulse RC, which are two brands which are quite well respected within the industry, especially Impulse RC, because Impulse RC is not known as one of those hype companies. Now, if you think about all of these companies out here that make frames, and I'm not gonna name names of companies because like I don't want to be looking like I'm picking someone out. But if you think about all these companies that make frames, think about how many different frames they've made, like 10, 15, 20 different designs since they've been in business.
Yeah.
They just keep on coming out with frames. Now, here's an interesting fact that I think a lot of people forget. Impulse RC have made 4 frames total. Their first frame was the Warp Quad, which wasn't even FPV. They don't even sell that anymore. So if you only include FPV frames, there's the Alien, the Helix, and the Reverb. And they're one of the biggest companies and most respected companies out there after only making 3 frames. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to work with Impulse, is because they're not out there with chucking stuff out there. They make stuff and it sells and it continues to sell, and the product speaks for itself.
Chad, sorry to interrupt. We've got, I think we've got a noise on the stream, have we, guys? Can you all confirm? We've got like I think we've got a whine coming from somewhere. It's not my voice.
It's not me.
Let's have a look. I think it's gone. Right. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Chad. Yeah, I think it has been a success just because, as I say, anywhere I go, everyone's got a reverb, and as you say, it's. I think the Alien's price was always sort of the issue. So I think it has been a success in that sense that it's brought the price down and it's sort of updated and it's a little bit lighter as well, isn't it? I think than the original. Oh, we've lost Chad's audio, I think, completely now. Sorry, Chad.
It was Chad squealing.
Okay, is that better?
We got yeah.
That's better.
Okay,
I thought it was a paper shredder.
It sounded like that, yeah.
I'm pretty happy with how it went, and I mean, whether it's a success or not, financially, regardless, I'm just happy to see out there people enjoying it and being happy with a product that I was very deeply involved with. So it's kind of like that satisfying thing, and that's the big thing for me. This is why I'll never be rich, because I never do things for business reasons and financial reasons. I do it because I'm passionate about it. So I helped Zong to create the V1S line of props because I was sick and tired of the crappy props that we had out there. And I've made very little money.
Thank you for that.
But the V1S prop is probably arguably the whole range is probably arguably the most popular prop out there. I've spent a lot of time developing stuff with Flyduino for the KISS stuff with Felix because I'm passionate about it. I've never been paid a cent. I've actually knocked back money of offers for them to pay me money. And what I've received is a little bit of electronics, which when you look at the cost price of those electronics is loose change. And I've worked with Immersion RC and developed the Vortex 230 Mojo, which, I mean, it wasn't really a success in terms of sales, but I think that was more of an advertising thing. But anyone who flies that will agree that it's easily one of the best ready-to-fly quads out there. And then there's the Reverb, and I had a hand in working with the guys with the Alien as well. So
the amount of people that's the amount of people with the Mojo who like have problems with it though, like it freaks out. Have you not?
I've not heard that. Hasn't Corey King got one?
I haven't heard that.
I've got one, and not to be a fanboy, I'm using Chad's profile, which I really like, actually. It's really smooth.
Oh, was it the Mojito?
Ooh, new best friend.
Oh, Jack, are you giving us fake news, Jack?
Yeah, fake news, Jack. I know.
He's trolling again.
Sorry, I'll shut my mouth.
And this has been a very long answer to a pretty simple question, so I apologize for that.
That's fine. It's interesting.
But to answer your question about like where I'm going next on that sort of stuff and getting into products and stuff, I'll be very clear that my direction is not within the hobbyist side of things. I'm still working in there, and I will still do things in there. But a lot of this, most of the work that I got a Patreon group of people which look after, which sort of pay me a small amount of money, which I'm very thankful for, which helps to sort of pay for the stuff that I buy. But certainly in terms of being a pilot and doing a good job of living off this, it's very hard to do, period. But it's, in my opinion, it's very hard to do while keeping the moral set that I have. I'm not someone to stick my name on everything and go, hey, this is the best thing, you should buy it. I don't want to name names, but I see a lot of pilots doing that. And that's not me. If that's them, that's great. But I want to be extremely passionate about the products that I bring out. And I don't want to push it like a fucking hooker. That's just not me. The good product will sell itself. And in my mind, in the last 15 months, technology has not like in the last maybe in the last 2 years, everything is plateaued. So unless I can bring out something that's just genuinely a step above, I just don't see the point. What I'm seeing is a lot of like we went through that hype craze where everyone was bringing out something and hyping it up, and everyone was getting super excited about it. And then 2 months later, everyone was over it. And now you see everyone's pissed off at a new product because they're calling everything hype because they're so jaded and burned by all the hype products that have come out that they're really annoyed and pissed off with it. And here's the problem as a developer of products. So let's say I go and work with company X to bring out a new flight controller or a new motor or something like that. What's going to happen with me and the company is they're going to develop it. I'm not going to put any of my money in it, but what's going to happen is I'm going to get a percentage of the sales. That's how it's going to work. So if it sells good, I'm going to get money. If it sells bad, I'm not going to get much money. And if people lose interest over it fairly quickly, it's going to be this quick little bump, and then you're not going to get any more money out of it. Now, to develop a product is going to take X amount of time. And the problem here is, let's say I develop a motor. I don't know how I develop a motor because all the motors out there at the moment are the fucking same. There's no big performance increase. You've just got ones that have got like different power curves and different winds. So there's different motors suited to different flying techniques and styles and so forth. But there is no better motor out there. And so let's say I develop a new motor that's got some new kind of magnet and gives 5% more performance. Awesome. I go and do this, and then a month later, China or a competing company or whatever gets those same magnets. They put it in there. They make exactly the same motor as me, but they draw flames on the bell. And you see this happen all the time. What invariably happens is they create all this bullshit hype, and then the original motor all of a sudden is no longer interesting, and people want that motor because it's got flames on it. And the 6 months worth of work that you put into there is over within a month.
Yeah.
And you can only do that so many times before you go, how many times do I want to punch a brick wall before I start saying that hurts? I don't want to do that anymore. So then you've got all these companies now that are not willing to put a lot of R&D in it, because what's the point? Because it just gets killed by something else or the Chinese cloners. So they go, we're not going to put R&D on it. So then they sugarcoat old shit to make it look new, which is, like I've said, I'm not interested in. And you kind of like at the point where
you're talking about black bells again.
It's just one of those areas where, unless you're, and I don't want to say this because I get copped a lot of flack from people when I say this, unless you're willing to sell out and dance for the monkey, it's very hard to make a living in here in this hobby, making new products, especially considering, like I've said, our technology is plateaued, and to get something new and very different is almost impossible. We really have to, you have to reinvent the three-phase motor to get something different than what we've got. That's just the way physics are. I'm not saying things are not increasing, but the increase in technology is incremental, where the price is exponentially more.
Do you know what totally does me? Is like when they remove the bottom of the motor and then sell you plastic bits to put it back on. That really annoys me.
But I mean, what that's doing is that's catering to people who are picky about certain things, and if that works, then great. But it's not increasing performance.
Yeah.
And like people go, well, what it did was it lost 1 gram per motor, so now it's 4 grams lighter. And these are the same people. These are the same people that are also stating that they can feel that 1 gram on each motor, which is total bullshit. But then they just go, hey, guess what? 6S is the new hype. It's only 30 grams heavier for the battery.
Yeah. Anyone here actually hit that hype train yet? I haven't.
I did a live feed and I got lots of all the 6S fanboys. I got a lot of hate for it. I'm just like, I can't fucking deal with this. So I turned it to be unlisted again. But here is the facts, and you don't need to go out and fly this to know this. All you need to know is understand maths. Okay, so
that's me and Jack out.
Yeah.
I'm good at maths.
From a basic physics point of view, is 6S better? Yes, it is. It is, but only by a couple of %. Okay, it is an improvement, but it's only a small improvement. You can do the numbers; it's right there. What limits you? There are a number of things that can limit you. One is price, which I won't go into right now. But what limits you is as you increase the voltage, but keep the watt hours the same, and keep the kV the same, everything else being equal, and that's important. I'm going to touch on that later on. What you end up is you get an increase on torque and you get an increase in efficiency. There's a reason why your mains voltage is the voltage that it is. There's just a reason for a lot of these things and why the voltage changes. It gets complicated. But if you look at the numbers, you go higher in voltage, the efficiency is better. The problem then is what happens is, and this is one of the many variables, is that as you increase the cell count, the packaging becomes more. So you've got more cells and more packaging and so forth. And people go, oh yeah, but if you get a 6S, the battery's heavier. I'm talking if you keep everything consistent, like watt hours. I don't care about milliamp hours. When you're changing the voltage, you need to talk about watt hours. If you keep the watt hours the same, what happens is the packaging becomes more and more and more. And there becomes a point in time where the extra weight outweighs the extra efficiency, of which the efficiency is only a couple of %. And then it comes to a point where it's kind of like putting a bigger and bigger and bigger capacity battery on there. You get longer flight times, and it gets so heavy that the motors have to work so hard that your flight time drops off. Now, where that point is in voltage, we don't know. Now, for like the big 600, 700 size helicopters, that's about 14S. And these guys have already gone through this. They started off the electric helicopter craze at 3S, and they're at 14S. Where that is for us, I don't know. We need to test that out. But going higher in voltage is more efficient. But here's my biggest problems with it. And one of the reasons why I think it hasn't taken off. First of all, there's not as much choice out there for battery voltages at that level for different pack sizes and motor KVs. That's changing. But here's the biggest problem: price. When a battery is going to cost more than a 4S battery, the hobbyists here, we're all a bunch of tight asses. We don't like paying money. So if you've got 20 packs of 4Ss and then they go, hey, let's join on the 6S hype craze, all you've got to do is get rid of your 4S batteries and get 26S batteries, which, by the way, are going to cost more. Yeah, and so there's a lot of limitations in there. I'm not saying it's not doable, but a lot of people have been hesitant. I think that's the reason why. The other reason why is I don't think people truly understand the benefits and how to get it, how to change across where you're comparing apples with apples. And this is where I think a lot of these tests, like Joshua Bardwell did a test recently, Steele did a test recently, but they were loaded tests. Reason being is they weren't comparing apples with apples. So if you want to compare 4S with 6S, then you have to compare the motor in the same state and you have to compare the battery in the same state. So the motor needs to be spinning at the same RPM. So forget about kV, you want to have it spinning. So higher voltage, it's for the same kV, it's going to spin higher. So you want to bring the kV of the motor down so that at the higher voltage, it's going to spin at the same RPM. And that's calculatable, very easily calculatable. On top of that, when you're changing voltages, you can't look at the capacity of the battery anymore in terms of milliamp hours. You have to look at it in watt hours. So you need to calculate the watt hours of your 4S battery and then use the same watt hour battery for your 6S battery. So if you are bringing the kV of the motor down so it's the same RPM and you're changing your battery to a 6S with the same watt hours, then and only then are you comparing apples with apples. Now, on my live feed, I did a quick calculation, and from memory, if you're running, and I'm sorry if I'm getting this a little bit wrong, but from memory, if you're running a 4S 1300 milliamp hour battery with a 2400 kV motor, then a 6S equivalent will be an 850 milliamp hour 6S pack with a 1550 kV motor. That is like for like, both things with the same capacity and the same RPM. The problem is that what these pilots, like the Joshua Bardwell test and the Steel test, was they used a higher kV motor. So they were saying, oh, it feels more thrusty and floaty. Well, of course it is, because it's the same as going from a 2400 kV 4S setup to a 2600 kV setup. So that's where you get that floatier feeling from. And, oh, look, I'm getting a minute extra flight time. Of course, because you almost added a third extra of watt hour capacity to your battery because you're using 1100 milliamp hours instead of an 850 or 900 milliamp hour battery. So that's why when you see these tests, they're saying, oh, it feels floatier because you're not using the same RPM. You're using a higher RPM. So it's geared differently and it's flying longer because you're using a bigger capacity battery. And that also shows because you're now 30 or 40 grams heavier than what you used to be. Now, if that works for the person who's flying it and they prefer that, then great. I'm not going to argue with that, but that's not comparing apples with apples. And like I said before, we're coming in from a community where people were bitching about 2 grams weight difference in motors, and now 30 to 40 grams difference in a battery doesn't matter.
Isn't it better for racing anyway, more than freestyle? Because I know some people are using it for freestyle and saying, oh, it's great and all that lot. I mean, well, I haven't jumped on the hype train, and I don't think a lot of people are, because the batteries are weigh a lot and cost a lot.
It's not just down to racing. Efficiency is efficiency. Whether you're driving a car on the road or driving a car on a racetrack, getting better fuel efficiency is going to mean good things for you. So it doesn't matter whether it's freestyle or racing. Efficiency is efficiency. And regardless of what people are doing with their speed stuff, the reason for going to 6S is because of efficiency at the end of the day. That's why we do it. Unfortunately, like a lot of people have gone to 6S because they want to go faster. That's one way you can go faster, but that's not the benefits of going to a higher voltage.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean,
I would suggest to people, if you want to try 6S, go and try it. There is a benefit there. The benefit is not as big as what people are stating. There is a big benefit if you're willing to take downsides as well. One of them being extra weight if you're willing to carry a bigger battery. But I mean, if that was the case, why aren't you carrying a 16 or a 1700 milliamp hour 4S pack? Oh, because I don't want it to be heavy. Well, why is it different now for a 6S?
The one thing I found with the thing that caught me out with 6S was when your battery's done, it really caught me out. Like the cox was falling out of the sky, and it's kind of it took me back to when they started coming out with the high C4S batteries, and you'd be flying, and all of a sudden your voltage would just hit a cliff and it'd fall out of the sky. And then I got used to that. But with 6S, the very first flight I did with 6S, I was like, looking at my on-screen display, and I think I worked out, I was trying to work out what the voltage was when I should be landing. I think, was it 21 volts or 20 volts? I can't remember. But all I remember is when I got to that point, the copter just fell out of the sky before, because it just caught me out. And that was the biggest problem I found with 6S was, it just hitting a cliff and the copter just falling out of the sky because I hadn't been monitoring the battery, as I should have been.
Mikey Dread's got a point. He doesn't want to watch 7-minute freestyle videos. 2 minutes, 3 minutes is enough. And I agree with that. Who want like trying to find a track what lasts 3 minutes is hard enough, let alone 7. So I think that's funny, Mikey. I agree.
Chad, why don't you do like a funny video of like if you want longer flight times, like and just get a big like tethered long bit of wire to a car battery or
Just
something.
plug it in.
You know, just have it there like hovering, like and upload a half an hour video.
Yeah. Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. My microphone keeps on dying on me. Apologies for that. Wait, just to go back and answer some points you said there, Andy, about it dropping off. I mean, this is one point where I say don't use voltage, use milliamp hour consumption because voltage is a very it'll bite you because of course voltage changes under load where milliamp hours don't. So milliamp hours is is the perfect way to keep an eye on your battery when things are going well, where voltage is a good way of telling you something's gone wrong when something's fucked up. That's a good way. That's a good way of looking. And also to say 6S, if done properly. So, for example, what was your motor kV and battery and so forth that you were using on that?
Oh, now you're asking. I think it was around about 1700 kV, and at the time I only had, because even now, like you say, getting the actual batteries to match is really tricky. And I think actually I was running a 1300, which is obviously like way oversized in comparison to a 4S. It's really difficult. It might be different now, but at the time I couldn't get anything below 1000 milliamp for 6S, and they were all sold out. Any shop that had them, because they, like you say, it was the hype. So getting
Don't
hold
worry,
of
I know exactly where you're coming from. I was one of the first people to successfully do 6S back in 2015, and I had to use 3D helicopter batteries. That was my only choice. But here's an interesting fact that a lot of people forget with 6S, because of the efficiency, your amp draw will drop.
Yeah.
So your amp draw will actually go down. So you're not actually punishing the battery as hard. So you're actually being nicer to your battery. That said, you also need to take into account if you follow the watt hours, what you'll be doing is you're reducing the capacity of the battery. Because you reduce the capacity of the battery, you're also reducing the usable amp draw, outlet, C rating, so forth, because it's a smaller capacity battery. So there's all these things to take into account. But with shrinking the size of the battery, you are actually reducing the amp draw, so it should be easier. It might have just been a shitty battery or something like that.
I think it was like a Turnigy graphene thing that I bought for like 10 quid or something. So yeah, not a good battery.
I don't talk. I do a lot of experiments with well-known guys, and I don't talk about it much, just in case I don't find something that sort of works out. So I'll be kind of brief on this, but here's some interesting numbers. So don't ask me how I know this, but 4S 1300, 2400 kV setup, regular setup. If we use that as a baseline, if we go up to 10S, the setup, when we're comparing apples with apples, the setup becomes 8% more efficient. So those people that are telling you I'm getting a minute's more flight time out of my 6S setup, when a 10S setup is only 8% efficient, you can do the numbers to work out how much more efficient 6S is. It's only a couple of percent. But here's the interesting thing. Could get away with running 22 gauge wires to power the ESCs because the amp draw was so much smaller.
Yeah.
So that's where the efficiency is. And I'm doing some tests in some interesting areas. But yeah, the hobby's unwillingness to change, because it means putting money forward to change, is I will put down as a big reason why 6S hasn't been taken on as much as it has been, because there is an improvement. No doubt about that. No question about that. It just means that you've got to spend extra money and just know that the improvement is not as big as what some people are saying because they're loading their tests.
Yeah, I also think as well, the components have to accept that voltage, and that's another limitation as well.
Yeah.
And one thing I found from 6S, and this might have just been bad components, but I was finding was getting more noise. So you're having to add capacitors that can accept more voltage. So I think, isn't it something like 50? You need like a 50-volt capacitor to deal with the voltage spikes and stuff like that.
Well, there's other reasons for that. So, for example, as you go higher up in voltage, the voltage spikes become less. So those big voltage spikes that have blown up components when we plug in our 13.4S, that actually becomes less of a problem as we increase the voltage. So that's less of an issue. The voltage spikes, not an issue. The noise can become more of an issue, but that comes down to the ESC manufacturers. So these ESC guys need to be able to put enough caps for noise suppression and so forth on their ESCs. And realistically, the ESCs that are out there have got good noise suppression for 4S, but above that is not good enough. That's why they recommend that you put caps on there, because they're going, okay, let's make it so it can work on KISS 6S. But if we're going to put good caps on there, that's going to increase the price of it. So we want to keep it down. So we're going to limit. Plus, they also want it really small. They want it compact and so forth. So they're going, which one are we listening? Do we make it more expensive and extremely noise free, or do we make it cheaper and cater more to the masses, which is the 4S market? So if the higher voltage becomes a thing, you will see the ESC designs evolve to suit that. So the noise that you're talking about on 6S is purely down to the ESCs, which are not designed to suppress that kind of noise, because ESCs, at the end of the day, that's where the noise comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's an interesting subject. And I've always said that I think, you talk about the things like hitting a plateau. And I don't know whether you'll agree with this, but I think the things that need to change, rather than, I always feel like we're just messing around. And big things that need to change are improvements to video and maybe battery technology, which of course we have no control over. I think those are the limiting things. The fact that we can only have 4 copters in the sky, and rather than, using digital video and things like that. And I think it would take that, for another hype thing to take off for people to get into it, I think.
Definitely. I think, I'll definitely say that batteries, I would say, are the main limiting factor on quad performance. They're the weak link in all of the chain. I don't see the video thing as being as big of a weak link, more of a ability to commercialize this within mainstream people. Because right now it's the hobbyist thing. We're like the modern day ham radio guys. We like to fiddle and we like to play and so forth. Some of us like to play less, but general public just wants to switch on and go. They don't want to fiddle. So if we could, and I don't necessarily think that digital is the answer, but I mean, yeah, sure, if we could get that, that's great. But if we could get if we could do the same thing as where you go down to, say, Flight Fest, where you've got 200 people on the flight line all flying at the same time without any issues, then problem solved. I think the problem really comes down to the reality of the limitations of reality itself. So battery technology is a limitation around the world, not just for us, around the world. So if anyone's going to, yeah, exactly. People sort of say, oh, such and such, like Flight One brought out the new schizo battery. It's new chemistry and it's groundbreaking. It's like, who do you think's going to come up with something new, Flight One or Tesla? If I'm a betting man, I'm going to go on Tesla. At the end of the day, the new battery technology that we come up with is not going to be lithium polymer. It's going to be something else, because that technology has plateaued. It's just the same thing as like NiCads and then nickel metal hydrides. They all plateaued, and then they went on the next one, which was lipos. So we've got to find that. And the other problem is that when you think about it, what we're doing is kind of scary. So what we're doing is we're trying to compress more and more energy into a smaller and smaller and lighter space. what that does is turns that storage device into even more and more of a volatile storage device. So do you think that like we would just carry petrol around in our pockets all the time like we do with our batteries? No, we do. We're like, that shit might catch on fire. So
we got butane in lighters.
There are batteries out there that have amazing properties that we absolutely love, but they're not safe enough to be used. So that's the problem. Finding something that has the performance that we want, that has the amp draw that we want, that has the cost that we want, that has the safety factor that we want. And we can get a number of those all at separate spots, but it's very hard to get them all together. And that's the big issue with that. And like every other technology, that technology will happen with someone else, and we will leverage it once they perfect it and they make it cheap for the mainstream. Just like we are only being able to fly quadcopters because the smartphone industry made gyros and accelerometers accurate and cheap enough and small enough that could be made en masse. We weren't part of that. The mobile phone market was. So that's the one thing there. And as far as video technology is concerned, there's a long way to go before we get anything even remotely better than what we had with what's the name? I've completely forgotten their name now. That shows how important they are to me. The digital
Connex guys.
Connex guys. Like they put a seriously large amount of work into that. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is when it comes to electronics, what the inventors of various electronics are limited by is the microchips and the silicon to make makes all those microchips of what they have on hand. And it's been very interesting. I've been to a number of electronics fairs with Anthony Cake from Immersion RC, and he has. You're really putting me off.
That's what he's best at doing.
Yeah, I'm just going to expand the chat. So I've been to a number of electronics fairs, and he's like, "I'm trying to create."
I was waiting until Tony noticed it. That was all.
He'd say, "I'm trying to create this electronic device, but the problem is that this microprocessor is limited in X area to be able to do this." He goes, "I can very easily get this company to modify that microprocessor to suit our needs, but the problem is they have an MOQ, a minimum order quantity of 1 million pieces." And he goes, "There's not enough of a market there to do that. So we're limited to whatever, like ESCs, they're limited when we make FETs. Most of the FETs that we use are the 30 volt or lower range, because the 30 volt is what's used in things like computers and so forth. So they're widely available. When you get outside and higher than that, you start running into problems where the choice of becomes a lot lower. It's kind of like saying, I'm going to build an 8S rig. What motors are out there? Oh, there's not too many. These are the ones you got to choose from. They work, but they're not very good. So we're limited to what's already out there as to what we can design. Now, the Connex guys were very different, because the company that owns Connex is a very big company that is involved in digital transmission. That's their forte. So they know what they're doing there. But they also own a microchip processing, designing, and manufacturing plant, so they can make their own microchips, just like DJI. DJI makes its own microchips and so forth, which means that they can do their own R&D work and do that a lot cheaper without having to have the minimum order quantity and that sort of stuff. It's still very expensive, but allows them to do things that other companies couldn't even dream of doing. But the problem is that they put so much R&D into this thing that's the reason why it's the price that it was, that everyone was bitching about, and they can't compete any lower because they've already got it as low as they can possibly do, because they've got to recoup the money that they've put into this thing to make it viable. And those guys who have the expertise that they have and the ability to make all the microchips and electronics themselves, and that was still the smallest device that they can put it in. So if a massive company like that is struggling to do it, then what I'm essentially saying is that kind of technology, just like battery technology, is going to be developed by someone else. And then we're going to leverage it once they get it working in a practical and cheap sense.
I mean, the market's changing though, because look at the brushless tools now. You know, brushless DeWalt tools and stuff like that with FET. So everything's slowly. You know, it kind of makes you wonder whether we had a hand in that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, no, it's more the other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
And the FETs and those things are not that good quality. It was very interesting. I was talking to Felix about FET design, lots of stuff, and he said where we are going to get new age FETs in higher voltages for our higher voltage setups is probably going to be the e-bike market, because that's becoming a very big, all of these sort of like one wheels and all that sort of stuff that people are transporting around electrically, they all need FETs, and they're using a much higher voltage than the computer stuff. So these guys are selling enough of this stuff to warrant the minimum order quantities for them to become the next thing. And Felix is saying that's where we're going to get our the new range of higher voltage FETs. But I think that's a subject that probably people don't talk about because they don't know. And I didn't really know until recently myself, when I started hanging out with these companies, where I realized that, okay, sure, we're designing electronics, but all those tiny little chips and stuff that they put on the PCBs are all stuff that's being borrowed from someone else, and we can only use what's on hand. We can't modify it. And that's why when you see a big company do something, they get a board that's got like 20 different chips and resistors and stuff like that, and all of a sudden they make it happen with just one microprocessor, because it's all inbuilt. And they have the ability to do that because that's the scale of mass production.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I find this a lot, you know, that there's a lot of people out there that have questions like, why can't this be done? And no one answers them. Like, you know, if we take Fat Sharks as like the recent example, why can't we? yeah, but it turns like everyone's like, why aren't Fat Sharks this and this? Why aren't they so much better? And it's usually because of that. Everything's repurposed what we're doing, and it's not as easy as it sounds to have the perfect product, because there's not enough money in it for it to be developed within the hobby. It has to come from somewhere else. It's an interesting subject.
We are a niche industry, and we need to grow 1,000-fold before anything of this becomes viable to do massive improvements. It's the scale of manufacturing. We're not big enough, and the simple fact of the matter is, to produce new products is fucking expensive, and you're not selling enough of those products to make it worthwhile. And my pet hate is to go, I just bought this flight controller and I know for a fact that there's only $5 worth of components on there, yet you're selling it for $40. And I'm going, that sounds exactly like the comment of someone who has no idea what is going on within designing that, because it's a simple fact that anyone who knows anything about R&D, development, manufacturing, is the cost price of something is probably the lowest part of the cost of it. It's that simple. And that's one of the reasons why the Chinese cloners and so forth can get away with cheap prices. It's not just because they use cheap components, because they don't always use cheap components. If you priced how cheaply they could get those components, you'd find out they're ripping you off as well.
Yeah.
They're able to make this at a fraction of what they sell it for, and then usually put a bigger profit margin than what the original guys do, but they can still get away with it because they don't have to pay for R&D. They don't have to pay their employees for R&D. They don't have to pay for the cost of sending stuff out. They don't have to pay for the cost of customer service. They don't have to pay the cost of advertising and being part of the community and sponsoring pilots and things like that. And when someone complains about the cost of it because how much it costs, it's just laughable. And I know I've developed a lot of enemies by reacting that way, but I'm just sick of it, because when I point that out, they go, well, I'm just not going to support you then. I go, well, you're buying cheap Chinese clone stuff anyway, so you weren't supporting me to begin with, so why should I care?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to watch your videos and give you a fraction of a cent.
I think
that's cool because my videos aren't monetized.
I think something that's happening though, Chad, on that subject is I think that the cheap Chinese clone industry is actually caving in on itself.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because the quality is so bad, people are buying into this stuff. It's failing and going wrong, and there's no support there. Whereas if you buy into an original, if
you buy into Fat Shark, you get great customer support. And if your 6S copter falls out of the sky, all you need is a Wolf PDB, because that comes with a milliamp hour shunt resistor that will tell you.
Finally, he talks some sense.
Yeah, is shield the right word, Frank? Is that
what shill?
Shill. That's
I
it.
I wanted to ask about the Wolf PDB.
Does it make your nipples hard, Andy RC?
It does, because it's got an on-screen display built into it, hasn't it? I think. Chad,
you
can you
liked
confirm?
that, didn't you?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
Okay, so I've got an original Alien, right? And when I built it, so it's got the KISS V1 in it, and I did the old, because I like an on-screen display, so I did the minim on-screen display mods that you could do.
They're not as good as a Wolf PDB. I don't measure milliamp hour usage.
I had a minimum OSD set up for my racing in Dubai with my KISS gear, and it was just headache after headache. It was a real pain.
I ended up making a jumper so that when it went wrong, I could plug something in to bypass it.
Yeah,
That's
mine just turns off randomly as well. That's something mine does. But I wanted to ask because I wanted to know. I bought a. Sorry to mention this one, but I bought a Mr. Steel PDB for it, which I haven't.
Yeah, that's fine.
Which I haven't fitted yet. And the minute I mentioned that I was going to fit it, everyone said, "Oh, it fails all the time," and all this business. So the question I wanted to ask was, will the Wolf PDB fit the Alien, or will it only fit the Reverb? Is my question.
I'll answer a few things on there. So,
okay.
So the Wolf PDB was designed for the Reverb as a slot straight into the Reverb. But when we were designing the Reverb PDB, whether it be the basic PDB or the Wolf PDB, the basic layout of the PDB was designed so that, can we make this so that it will likely work in a lot of frames? You can't make it work in all frames, but can we make it work in a lot of frames? So there are very few frames that you can't make it work. But
the Alien's one of them.
There are people that have put it in an Alien. It just takes a little bit of shuffling. So the difference with, say, the Wolf PDB and the Alien is that the Alien has got that extra set of 4 screws right in the middle, where the Reverb doesn't. So what you have to do is you have to float it above those presses. You'd be best to get on like the Impulse RC thread or the go back on RC groups to those forums there and ask those guys how they did it, because there's a number of guys that have done various ways of floating that above that. Once you do that, that's fine, and that would be the same. Like there's guys that have put them in roosters, they've had to float them above there. Guys that are in they've put them, apparently the chameleons that just go straight in. I think the Stingy, maybe it goes straight in. But you can fit it in most things. It's just a matter of how much effort you want to put into it. So the Impulse RC guys recommend that if you've got an Alien, the Steel PDB is the recommended one there because it goes straight in there. But if you want to put a Wolf PDB, it will fit. And one of the reasons why you'd want to put a Wolf PDB in there is because it does a shitload more stuff. And just for the record too, because I like being open, I don't make a cent on the Wolf boards. So Alexander Wolf and Impulse RC are the ones that make. I just wanted to get the Steel PDB, which I thought was lacking in some areas, and bring it to what the customers want. And I sort of I started off and I gave this idea to Sean and Alex, and they sort of rolled with it. And I've sort of been semi-involved in the process through it, but it's 99% their work. But
if you do buy a Wolf PDB, please ensure that you buy even if you don't need one, another reverb so that Chad can eat another day.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get really fancy and go out and eat pizza tonight. So if you guys will all support me, that would be great.
Join his Patreon.
But there are people that, and I don't have any experience on this because I've never installed a steel PDB in my Alien, because just an OSD by itself I've never had the use for. And one of the reasons why I wanted more from the Wolf PDB. So I can't comment, but from my understanding, people's issues, some people have issues with the steel PDB because it's part of the structure. When you hit something with an arm, it bends the middle plate and it can sort of break things on the PCB. I think that's more happening with like your bigger 6 and 7 inch arms where they've got more leverage and so forth.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and one of my reasons for designing the reverb where it doesn't have the PDB as part of the structure was because of that, because I just saw issues with that long term. So I wanted that floating and I wanted that away, but I also wanted to do that because I wanted to give people the opportunity to choose. If you don't want a PDB, you don't buy the PDB. So that's why the base version of the reverb is a bit cheaper, because it doesn't include any PDB. Because there's guys out there that are using all-in-one boards with their own PDB on the flight controller. What do you want a PDB for? So the whole idea was let's design an aircraft that will keep so many different, because we know how picky all us bastards are. It's like, I'd buy that quad if it didn't have those ESCs on it. So if you can design a frame that allows people multiple choices right from the get-go, it keeps them happier. So that's the reason why the PDB reverb, on the PDB on the reverb is the way that it is. But at the same time, our design process was, how can we design this so that it fits beautifully with the reverb, but also gives people the opportunity to use it in other frames, knowing that this is their main choice, and especially with all new features on the Wolf PDB, will be a very popular choice for any KISS user and quite a lot of Betaflight users as well.
Yeah, awesome.
Right, guys, I've got to call it time. It is 1:15 the hour.
Can I just say sorry that we've talked about drones and drone stuff? I'm sorry there is no lawnmowers and rain things. And
what did you want to talk about, Tony? Very quickly.
Well, our viewers are like, this is too drone related. What's going on?
Are they just disappointed Chad didn't take his top off like the last time?
Maybe, I don't know.
But you guys do realize that we didn't even speak once about drone regulation, which I think was the whole reason for me coming on.
Frank's very angry about that.
Frank, I want Frank to swear.
It must be even more angry because since last week we had the new consultation thing come out as well, which is even more depressing.
Well, don't worry. The FAA is trying to squash any ability for people to fly hobbyist drones in America with freedom. In Australia, the Australian federal government has come out with after meetings of their thoughts on what should happen in terms of drone safety, which is basically usual shit: drone registration and fuck everyone off to an aircraft club and lots of stuff. So it's happening all around the world, and yeah, I don't think there's much that we can do about it because we're a bunch of nobodies.
Exactly.
Like, what we're going to do is we're going to educate people and we're going to show them what we're like. We're a bunch of nobodies and we're a small community. No one gives a fuck about us.
We haven't got any money. We're not Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to say, I'd like to be hopeful that we're going to win, but I think we're going to lose. And I'm just at the point where I've spent so much time with my aviation governing body, CASA, and been fucked over so many times that now I'm just like, you know what? Fuck you. I'll just go underground.
Yeah,
maybe that's
probably what's going to happen in the long run.
That's exactly what's going to happen, because until that they can actually prove that we're being dangerous, people are not going to take them seriously. And none of the statistics back up any claims that there is a safety concern at all.
Why don't we all just print out an Amazon logo and stick it to our quads? And then if anybody asked, they'll be like, yes, it's one of the test drones. They'll be like, oh, sorry, back off.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Everyone do that.
Oh, and just as an aside, in case anyone doesn't know and they are interested in watching the two videos that I've got, my removing oneself from the equation and the chicken sandwich video that I had to pull down because I got in trouble with CASA, I've made them public on my YouTube channel again. So if you guys want to go and watch them, go ahead and watch them, because my reply after the way that CASA dealt with another incident regarding a TV station which did similar dangerous things to me, but even worse, and they let them off going, oh, it's all right, we'll let them do this. My answer is, you know what, fuck you. I'm putting my shit back up.
I like this new Chad. Chicken sandwich is probably the best FPV video I've ever watched. I absolutely adore that video.
Well, it's back up there if you want to watch it.
Your dad sent it to me the other day. When are we going to see another video from you? Because you've gone quiet. Are you still flying? Are you still going to put a video up, or is it just because you want to do it when you want to do it? Or
well, yeah, it's kind of like that. I still fly. Like, I don't fly 20 packs a day. I fly when I feel like it, which is every now and then. And like, I'm one of those pilots. I've gone to so many different locations, and I got to a point where I'm like, oh, you want to go to a bando? Oh yeah, another bando. Done all that sort of stuff. For me, it's not about going to new and extreme places. It's about producing something that moves me. You know, I like telling a story. It's not about showing off. So when I find a location that I'm like, wow, I want to tell a story, I want to share something, I'll go and do that. And that doesn't mean going down to the same park every single day and flying. It just that if I'm not passionate about something, then I'm not going to do it, because I'm not making money on this.
No,
I'm just doing it.
The videos. That's what I'm trying to say.
So yeah, I will make more videos. I just don't know when. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to do one next week. I get angry when I sit there and I try and push something. So I'm just like, no, I'm doing this for fun, and I appreciate all the support that people give me. And new stuff will come out with new stuff, and that way, when I can say every single video that I've put out, flying video, I'm very proud of it, and there's a story behind it, and I watch it, and it takes me back to that point in time. And I can recreate what was going on in my life at that point in time. It's not a, hey, look, I can fly really cool. Look at me, look at me, look at me. It's a, I was going through something at that point in time in life, and there's little subtle overtones in that video that 99% of the people out there won't even get. But those who know me understand the little secret innuendos that were in there, or just I want to share something that was real. I thought was really beautiful, and if people like it, then they like it. So I guess I need to find more situations that move me out in general life.
Okay,
right.
Well, we miss it. Are we doing an Andy RC or Northern at all tonight?
You can do if you want.
I was going to say someone's complaining that it hasn't been done in the comments, which is kind of funny.
I think we need to do it.
Oh, Jesus.
Hang on, let me just Google.
I still don't get this segment.
Wait, Andy RC, you're Northern, aren't you?
Apparently. Apparently so, but even though
Best bit of the show.
Even though it's technically the Midlands, but okay.
Shut up! You're Northern, you work for Fat Shark, so shut your whore mouth.
Okay.
Oh, no. Hang on.
You're just not prepared.
I'm not
for this.
prepared. What's
Run out of Northern expressions.
Put wood.
Go on.
Oh,
What?
I can't read that. It's put wood into OLE.
What?
Ole. Like coal without
Oh,
the
yeah,
H.
into ole.
Put wood into ole.
Put wood into ole. Yeah, that's it.
Get the
Hole.
put wood into ole.
Can I
Yeah.
have a cup of tea?
Put wood in, what, like a glory hole or something?
Well, that's for you to decide. That's for you to decide.
Where is your
can't
mind,
tell
Andy
us.
RC? Dear oh dear.
That's my interpretation of put wood in toll.
It means shut the door, Richard Warwick.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah,
Put wood in ole.
I've got one. I've just thought of one because they used to say this.
Shut that door.
Climb the wooden hills. Did you know what?
Up the wooden hill.
That's going to bed.
Say that. Go to bed. Get up that wooden hill, son.
Oh, that's not a northern one then.
Do you say that to Joker? Let's go to bed together.
No, I think it says put wood in toll, I think.
Oh, yeah, Andy. You're northern. Shut it.
Right.
Let's have a little shout out quick and then we'll go.
Frank's buggered off.
Frank's gone.
Hey, I just want to do a quick shout out to I met with some local lads, and it turns out they listen and watch LDO. It was.
Did you apologise to them?
It was bizarre. So I'm gonna shout out to Pete and Rich. They both Rich listens to the show at work. So.
Oh, Pete and Rich.
You're listening to this.
Hope your day's going all right.
There you go.
Right, shout out. Well, Alf Swishy, Dave, Win Davis is in the chat. Joker Vision, ooh, best friend. Richard Warwick, MC Creations, Bill M, Green Patches in the chat. Peter Marshall, Tribe Ball, FPV. Who else we got to go up here? I can't see any new ones. Aris, Patches, Richard. I think I've gone through. Chad's in the chat. Mikey Dread, all of the normals. Hello to everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We love you all. Thank you, Patreons, as well. Because Jack doesn't say thank you anymore.
I do. Thank you, Patreons. In fact, we had some new ones. One of them left, unfortunately.
What did you say, Jack?
I don't know. Nothing. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for filling that hole that Tony's left behind.
7850. 7850.
Or 7850.
Oh, you don't know the story of 7850?
No.
Okay. Do you remember? A lot of those the big live feeds that happened after you guys kind of started that, where they'd start giving stuff away, and so you'd have to like guess a number between a certain amount and a certain amount, and whoever guessed the correct number, they'd be like between 0 and 100. So every time they asked the question on some live feeds, I just reply with 7850. Yeah. and it became a thing. Like every live feed I was on, people would just answer everything with 7850.
Oh. We've got a used CC3D board. If you'd like to win this,
7850.
You win, Chad.
Is it a genuine one or is
7850?
No, I think it's genuine. I don't know. It was from first person view.
Yeah, it's got I think it's got, is that Revo written on it? I think. That's what it was called, wasn't it, originally? CC3D Revo, wasn't it?
No, Rev C, I think, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, something like that. Sounds genuine, Jack.
Copter Control 3D. Remember, if you want your flight controllers to fly better, lick them. That's fake. The original is white. Okay, thank you, Mikey Drade. Going in the bin. Right. Thank you. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. Do you fancy a bit of gay farming, Curry Kitten?
No, I have edit hell to do.
Oh, no worries.
Times infinity.
No worries. All right, no thing. I'm gonna go eat. All right, thank you. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. NJ Tech is 2 subs away from 10k. We've been joined by Andrew / Frank.
Bye.
He's turned his camera off because he's taken his shirt off. Ladies, he's available. Just go to andrew/frank.com. Andy RC.
Good evening, everyone.
Who's wearing a hoodie in this weather. You can tell he's northern. Final Guide Oz.
Why, thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, buddy. I'm glad you're doing well, and it's a pleasure to have you on. My little Tony.
Bonjour.
He's vegan, but he's still eating himself. And curry killing.
That actually is vegan. You can eat yourself or someone else.
I'm just impressed you can reach.
Another human if I want.
Put in his own words in his own hole. Thank you. Good night.